Welcome back to Masters Tour Jönköping, and we are going to dive into our top 8. And we're going to start off with Stone versus Warma. Obviously a French player in the top 8. Why wouldn't there be? They've been dominating the entirety of Masters Tour. But also Stone from China going to give us a demonstration of some Priest, I believe, Gia.
Yes, Stone and Warma at the 3rd and 6th seeds, respectively, at the end of Swiss, but don't have too much of a discrepancy in terms of their scores because it actually turned out that our entire top 8 finished the Swiss with an 8-1 match record, which honestly, I love to see that. It means that nobody gets betrayed by their tiebreakers at the end there. And we can see here from Stone leaving up the Warrior from Warma, largely due to the fact that he's brought this Galakron Priest.
Yeah, Galakron Priest, very much a thing for like one of the weeks of GM where everybody had to cast Priest mirrors and everything went on a very long time. But the reason you bring Priest is so that you can beat Warrior with it. Warrior, for a while, fought back. They put the likes of Captain Greenskin in their deck and Deathwing, as you see here, actually in Warma's deck, which helps a little bit. But as that backed off, then the Priests didn't have... Yeah, they didn't target the Priests as much. Now the Priests are creeping back into it, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's very true. And Warma maybe had the possibility of Priest in mind when building his warrior list because there's actually an execute tech lurking in there, which we could see come into play because for Stone, the game plan with this Galakron Priest at the beginning, sure, will be just to remove the minions very effectively with these removal options like Penance and Shadow Word Death. But towards the end, Warrior can put together that OTK, as you called it yesterday, the maximum of 22 damage from hand if you get Korkron both Inner Rage alongside Rampage and Bloodsworn Mercenary and other discrete point breakdowns depending on whether it's Garrosh in hand. And it's really up to the Priest to make sure that they don't fall into that trap.
Yeah, and Battle Rage, a big deal here in the Warriors' hand. It might not look like it yet, but wait until about turn 6 or 7 when the Warriors trying to keep pushing and it becomes a massive deal right about then.
Mm-hmm. There's also the possibility that Priest can whiff on their removal options in the early game. I think it tends to happen less and less because now they get Thought Steal for very cheap, and it allows them to use warrior cards against them. The weapons primarily are a very big one, and they can also pick up card draw from the warrior side, which helps Priest more consistently get to all of the removal they need for the first push, which we could see from Warma potentially could come in the form of this Warmal Challenger.
Yeah, although not a lot else going on. So yeah, I think he will try and develop that and just try and get some card draw out of the way with the anchor and then see where he's at. Which gives me a moment just to run down a little bit about Stone while we watch the opening couple of turns develop here. We spoke a lot about Dead Draw, and Stone's kind of the China equivalent of Dead Draw. He's the only one-star master, because they're still using that scheme, who is not on a team in the team league at the moment. He was part of World Elite, like the youth team that they used to have, but they don't currently sort of run that or organise that. So he's kind of not on... He's on the team, but he's not a part of the team in the team league. And he just got 4 top 8s in the Gold Opens last year as well. So he's just kicking ass, basically, in China. But also the way his results were split meant he didn't get into the playoffs because he got half of his good results in one half of the year and half in the other half.
Okay, what I picked up from that is he is a lot like Deaddraw, like you said, because he is part of a team which is like the good players. Deadraw's part of that, but not in GM just yet. And I'm hearing a lot of near misses and good results, but just falling that little bit short. And you know what? That is making me root for Stone a little bit here. However, I know from experience that we can never discount French players in the Masters Tour scheme. We did see previously Warma already equipping that anchor, trying to get the card draw going. Warmal Challenger was an option there, but he didn't really have a rampage or a way to actually make the challenger a threat, so I don't mind him trying to cycle into the risky skippers as soon as possible.
Yeah, he's going to try and get as many cheap things as possible now to try and get a Battle Rage to try and have some sort of effect, just re-getting his hand, like a plot twist for Warrior, because just dump this lot and draw a new one, because at the moment this is just not enough aggression available.
Well, he could potentially draw 5 cards this turn if he wants. However, let me see if there's enough hand space to do that. So my original thought was Skipper, Skyvateer, and then bump with your face into the Shield of Galakron, and then Battle Rage. I think between the Skyvateer giving him a card draw, though, that wasn't necessarily best for his hand.
And yeah, Crag is just always the worst one.
Oh, yes.
Even when you need a taunt, it's not good enough to sort of fill the role. So it's just always the worst one by a long way. I quite like random effects that have just the occasional bad one that isn't game-breakingly bad. But, this has made his hand really difficult now.
Yeah, it just kind of requires him a turn to dump it. I don't think this is going to be a Skipper anymore, but we could just see him expend the Execute if he likes to get rid of this, or potentially play down the Skyvateer and just clear off with minions.
Yeah, he's trying to dump, so he's going to go for that Battle Rage next turn. Plus, you've just got to constantly pressure the Priest. And it's weird that you think, when you first play this matchup, you think you've just got to put all your damage into their face and hope for the best. But unfortunately for that plan, Apotheosis is a card. And you soon learn that you have to also kill all of their minions, which gets really tedious.
We're in kind of a weird dance in the mid game where, yes, the warrior has board, but all of these minions are hardly pushing any damage at all. So I struggle to call it really pressuring the priest. And Stone himself has not really felt the need to expend his removal cards. Not to mention, the minions are so low attack that the Shadow Manuses can't actually kill off 2 minions at once. Maybe next turn paired with the Breath of the Infinite. But for now, we saw Stone take a very slow turn, just develop his Carge, and at least have that insurance of a 110 behind it. For Warma, though, I think this is largely going to be about dumping and getting that Battle Rage off.
Yeah, picking up this live wire at Lance, he is having to just reassess his options here, because he was obviously on the draw a lot of cards plan a minute ago, but picking up the Lance can just give him the option to put a load of damage to face, get some lackeys, and see where he's at from there, because Stone won't want to Apotheosis just yet if he can help it.
Yeah. Taking a look at the hand again, I do like the live wire Lance because it was just very awkward for Warma to be able to dump enough cards to get the maximum Battle Rage off, and I think that he would be interested in possibly executing this Warmal Challenger, and
yeah,
that would not have fit in the turn.
This is daring Stone to put Apotheosis on this. It's like, go on, put Apotheosis on it and see if he gets executed or not. He hasn't got it, so we're not going to find out what would have happened, but it's the perfect target for the Apotheosis, and he's left it there for that reason.
A good spot. No potential Apotheosis, as you said, but we could see the Challenger trade into the Armorsmith and then start going off with the Sethic and renew onto it. But I think the Breath of the Infinite definitely looks cleaner here to clean up the majority of the minions.
Yeah, and this is where playing Priest is hard. I mean, playing Priest isn't hard, it's easy, anyone can do it, even Tic Tac can do it, but playing Priest gets hard where, do I really have to deal with this board? Can I just like look at it and hope it goes away? Because I don't want to waste any cards at all doing anything this turn. Just a load of rubbish.
And that is pretty much Stone's thought process, going for the Kronks and not respecting what's already on board, because it's still a turn away from the really threatening mana breakpoints when the Grom becomes active with Inner Rage, possibly. So I think he's holding back here and is going to go for the removal on the follow-up.
Yeah, and Warma's game plan just keeps changing every turn. This is why he's taking so long, because if you're changing your plan, you need a good reason to do it. And now the picking up of Grom makes you wonder, well, do I just want to try and do the 12 in one turn? Which opens up like use for the Mercenary as well. And 2 turns ago, his plan was totally different to what it is now.
I think he has found a spot now where he can potentially Battle Rage and not overdraw. We could see the Kobold Lackey trade into the 6/5 and then a Skipper Armorsmith Battle Rage for 4 draws at that point. That would put him up to 10, and then he could still use the Execute to dump a remaining card. Maybe I'm just really impatient with this Battle Rage though, because Warma says I'm gonna wait even longer.
Yeah, I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out, because I think I said on turn 1 that you tend to wait till about turn 7 or 8 and then you really need it. But I have felt that he wanted to do it earlier because his opening hand just had no damage in it at all. But the pickups off the top have just helped him get enough damage that he's willing to wait. Maybe he is going to try and full combo with the Battle Rage at the end.
I mean, you say full combo, but it feels like he gets just the same amount of card draws if this board gets cleared and then he follows up with empty board, dump more minions, Battle Rage, as opposed to doing it that turn. He could, however, just be baiting Stone into trying to expend some removal at this low pressure board. And Stone with the pickup of Apotheosis is potentially pretty big here. He could just take the 8 healing now by buffing his Kronks and trading. However, that would leave the Kronks still damaged and possibly vulnerable to execute.
Yeah, gone are the days where you didn't know your opponent's deck list, so halfway through he can expect that execute to be in hand half the time, which most Hearthstone players regard as 100%.
Pretty huge though. He can actually Apotheosis trade and then renew it back to full health and say you need to have a skipper turn on top of the execute, which to be fair though, that's not a huge ask from Warma, who's already swung thrice with an Ankar.
Yeah, this is where the fun and games begin.
Yeah. Stone completely patient with this.
And now we might see the card draw turn. Because now there's sort of nothing to do this turn of other than the Livewire Lance, which is just a little bit slower than it was 3 or 4 turns ago.
So, are you liking the look of Skipper Smith Bloodsworn Battle Rage? I think that would overdraw him a little. Oh no!
Oof.
Uh-oh.
Well, we do have, thankfully, the Friends Pause game system these days. Well, not quite sure which order those words were meant to be in, but probably not the one they came out in. But yeah, I think that might be a thing. You might even consider injuring both skippers here.
What now?
Does have the upside on top of drawing you some cards that you get to injure that Kronks.
And this is a really tough turn because if he goes Skipper and then Smith and then copies either of the minions, that would put a total of 4 minions on board, and then the Battle Rage would draw 5 because his face is also damaged. And then that would be all his mana, and so he would end up still overdrawing. So Warma is going to wait once more and try to set up a cleaner dump turn. And having that 1 extra mana could be all of the difference. I'm honestly, every turn of this game so far, I did not expect both players to be this patient from both sides.
Yeah, I was saying to you before we sort of came live, this is one of my favourite matchups, and you gave a little bit of a funny look as to why would you like this? But it's just so fascinating when you get to this exact stage of the game of the priest knows you're trying to combo them, you are trying to combo them, but also the priest has ways of getting out of range, but not that many ways. Plus, if you take a long time with the warrior, you can hit them with a 1-2 punch of Grommash one turn, and then the big combo for a lot of damage again the next turn. And this is where we're seeing renewing face is an option here. Just to get all the way back to 30 after this attack.
29 to be facetious, but yes,
Sure.
I think that the little health on the face is possibly more relevant. Okay, if you get Inner Fire, wait a second.
Oof. Oh, is this...
Oh my gosh.
This has changed the game.
And now Stone is gonna overdraw, but I don't think he cares. He has a lot of what he needs already in hand, and just a freaking 10 swinging face.
Yeah, should have played the cards in a different order, then you'd have a Apotheosis on an even bigger minion.
I was gonna say, I was still looking at possibly renewing a minion there, but of course, it would still eventually get damaged by a skipper turn, so you're not playing around execute all that hard.
I think that the other way was better, though. I think hitting the minion with a 10-10 and going 8 face was just better. Make them have the skipper. You know it's there because he had Ankar for a turn, but make them use it. You're forcing the opponent to sort of dump a card out of their hand.
Maybe. But
It doesn't
Warma
make much
had
difference, yeah.
started the change. Yeah, it doesn't make much difference because these minions are both well out of range of a simple skip or clear turn. We see Warma digging for his Blood Boil Brute, trying to just scrounge together any way to get rid of the other one because he can only execute one of them.
Yeah. 10-9 is quite hard to deal with for warriors. It doesn't have taunt though, and it doesn't have lifesteal, so one way to deal with it is to race it.
Sure. Yeah, Priest, known for stealing a lot of things, but naturally they don't run very much burst at all. And so the amount of damage they can immediately put out is usually face up. But we could see Stone just run away with this board. I'm looking at this Shadow Madness to steal the Bomb Wrangler. I'm looking at the Bloodsworn to copy his huge Warmal Challenger.
But I'm looking at the other side. There's 18 damage available next turn from hand for Warma. And Stone knows it's getting close to those sort of numbers.
He does have to be very cautious. Also, the problem with the Shadow Madness, there's not actually a way to kill off the Bomb Wrangler immediately. You can just trade down and get one bomb.
Because when you first look at this, you just want to copy the 10-8 and move on with your life. But if there's a way you can die, you can't do that. So he's just getting rid of the bomb. I like this. This is just healing. This is just getting damage off your face.
Yes, I like this a lot. Oh no!
Oh no!
That's a terrible outcome. You can still, at least have the other Shadow Madness and get rid of that. But it does mean possibly a lost hero power. Okay. Bomb dominoes.
Yeah, he ordered that well as well. Got the minion down first. If the bomb had gone for 4 more to the face and the 22 was available in hand, he would actually have died next turn.
Yeah.
That's how ridiculous this matchup is.
As you said, though, it is just 18 currently.
Yes.
19 with the Goblin Lackey, actually. Sorry.
Oh, that makes it 20 then.
20, yes, with the Goblin Lackey. Extremely close, but not quite there yet. And so Warma is again back to the drawing board, having to find an answer for these 10-8s, and I am not seeing it outside of having to expend a Grom.
Oh.
Or just the combo is what he has to expend, right?
Yeah.
Just to stay
has
alive.
To expend his win condition. Which, in the top 8 of a tournament that might qualify you for Grandmasters, you do. On ladder, you just concede here.
Yep, he could
you
build
play
up
out the
those
chance.
2 Korkrons up to their 9 attack, and then copy.
And trade into the 2 10-8s.
Yep,
and your game plan becomes play Grom, hit you with it, and you can't kill my Grom, and I hit you with it again.
Right, which is a very, very wishful thinking type of line to take, but it is Warma's only shot from this point. Because somehow the Priest actually managed to put a clock on him, which is just not a way that I'm used to seeing this matchup pan out. Usually the Priest has to be the one kind of as a sitting duck and waiting there to patiently run the warrior out of resources, consider the max amount of combo damage, but they don't have the luxury of ending the game because they don't have any threats.
Yeah, so he took a mini risk that he could have died to an incredibly unlikely sequence of events, knowing that the rest of the times would win the game. Whereas if Stone had stayed in defensive mode, he's just giving Warma the time to get luckier. So he just took that one window of opportunity to set up a crazy game-winning board.
That is true. And on top of forcing all of those resources out of Warma's hand, now Stone has put down a taunt, a generated taunt, which is yet another bane of Warrior's existence. High health taunt minions to execute has been used. If Warma wants to get through the Skeletal Dragon, it has to be using the Grom. Ugh.
Yeah, Skeletal Dragon is also like just the worst thing for Warrior to face at the best of times, let alone now. That is basically GG, as far as I can see.
Yeah. Looks like a Skipper Grom turn. Warma can then trade down the... Oh, never mind. He is going to be drawing for the Blood Boil Brutes instead. I definitely can get behind that. Grom seems like his final, even marginal win condition, but he misses.
Yep, it could do 15 twice. It's not going to happen, but it's possible. In fact, what's likely to happen is he gets stolen with mind control and just comes back and hits you in the face.
Oh my...
I don't think we ever get there, unfortunately, but I'd find that intensely amusing if we did.
Very intensely amusing. For now, Stone just going to develop minions at his own leisure, not under any pressure whatsoever, and still sitting behind this taunt.
Yep. And this is the way to do it. Just torture your opponent.
Okay. What about Murazon the Grom instead of mind controlling the Grom?
Sure, that's actually a thing that could happen. Because the Grom might end up trading into something.
At this point, it kind of has to. Otherwise, Warma could very well be dead next turn. Deathwing?
Yeah, I'm just staring. Sorry, just looking at Hearthstone instead of doing my job for a minute there. I'm just trying to process any way that Warma can get this done. I'm just watching Murazons and Deathwings going into the hand of the player that's already won. It's like, stop! He's already dead.
Yeah. Okay, for Warma, I think he still has the one Livewire Lance in the deck, so we could see him go Corsair Cash, pull that out to get that, and play the Blood Boil Brute, just get through the Skeletal Dragon, and then push a marginal amount of damage face. I don't think it ever gets there, but maybe some type of Miracle Spell Lackey could give him some more time.
Yeah, Dragon into his own Deathwing. He actually has the other Deathwing in his deck, I think. So he should be able to clear the board once.
If it doesn't hit the poisonous.
Yeah, it'll be fine. What could go wrong? Go on, put some damage into the
Alternatively,
face.
he could cash in the Korkron Elite because it's technically more damage right now than just a buffed up weapon. But he is instead going to play around just dying on the spot.
Yeah, at least he's finding a way to present a board. Watching how really good players struggle to try and find a way to win is a really good way to get better at Hearthstone. Instead of me zoning out and saying, well, this game is just over, finding out how Warma is trying to do it. Where is his 1%?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
But this is one of the naughty combos in this deck as well.
It's just so dirty.
A soul-destroying mirror.
That's a priest mirror.
That destroys everybody's soul. That's a very good point.
Well, no way out left. The fact that he did not go for Corsair Cash makes me think that I might have missed the second Livewire Lance.
Yeah,
I
did think when you said it, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Because I can't even say the card's name. But yes! Thank you.
That was just such a show of dominance from the priest. Not often I get to say that, but when we do, it's often a particular matchup.
1-0, Priest getting its job done, and really a fantastic start. If you're going to bring Priest, that's exactly what you want to do with it. Obviously, Warma having a warrior up normally wouldn't be a problem, but if it runs into the Druid, maybe it'll take 2 losses in one match, and that would be a disaster.
Yes, that would potentially be just the end of Warma's run here. And you know what? It seems like such a bold strategy to leave up Warrior, but we were seeing it from several different players in not just APAC, but also in the Chinese scene. We saw VK Lion going for it. And over in Europe, we saw Baby Bear going for it. I'm sure there's a bunch of other names that I haven't mentioned here, but it seems that Priest is the cornerstone of a couple of those strategies. And now, this Druid with that Dragon package that you were talking about, I do think gives him a better chance. Oh, sorry. The Druid from Stone is actually not running the additional dragons. That was Warma's.
Okay. So that's slightly strange. So that means the Druid is an underdog, in my mind at least. Here we go. As our good friend Abar bails us out there with that nonsense, and we actually get to see the list on the screen. So yeah, this is just the list that you would write down if you hadn't heard us talking about it? The straight up
Yes.
normal druid.
This looks like pretty much every druid that APAC GMs were bringing in the second to the last week, outside of the double wild growth in place of a single wrath. I think it looks very standard here. And the inclusion of wild growth over wrath tends to make me think that they value early glowflies more so than potential further cycle.
Yeah, it always amazed me when this deck first turned up that wild growth wasn't run at all, because you have a 5-mana card that at the time was the deck before Mount Sellers really took over. And Wild Growth just curves into it absolutely perfectly. I understood it wasn't as good, but it doesn't matter that it wasn't that good. You won the game if you played it.
Well, we do see Stone tossing away the Glowfly. We were talking about how the Wild Growth curves perfectly into that card, but for this particular matchup, I don't think it's so much about turboing out the Glowflies compared to turboing out the Mount Seller, which tends to generate boards which aren't in the range of a risky skipper clear and maybe aren't so easily punished by the Blood Boil Brute. Warma, right off the bat, keeping Battle Rage is yet another debatable thing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that against Druid. This druid anyway, because I'm a fan of trying to just kill them in 4 or 5 turns. You don't have time to battle rage if you're doing that, but on the other side of it, if you whiff and you battle rage for quite a lot on turn 4 or 5, obviously you have an amazing next couple of turns. So just to see where that goes.
So when you say the game plan of killing them in a couple turns, I think that's largely dependent on sticking the Warma Challenger and getting the buff on that, and maybe lends itself a bit more consistently to the egg build of the warrior, where you do have another possible threat for Inner Rages and Rampage to stick on, and the Terran, of course, for a great curve. But for Warma's particular list, he's not running the eggs nor the Terran, and he does have that execute there, which is a little bit more defensive. So I don't mind him holding on to a card draw mechanic for later on, and I think he can more reliably try to get to a skipper combo as his win condition.
Yep, absolutely, and he's already counting. He's played the Armor Smith here, not because it's on curve, but because it has 4 health, which makes it an Inner Rage and Mercenaries target for next turn to get around the Crystal Power. And then later on he can go Skipper, Wrangler, and just bomb for loads of damage as well. But I wouldn't be at all surprised to see just Inner Rage into Mercenaries and just have big things hitting the Druid from nowhere.
Can definitely get behind that line. I was also looking potentially at the Bomb Wrangler and the Inner Rage, because I think that tends to be a more aggressive target, obviously, but you don't get to stick the Mercenary immediately in that type of turn. And so I like your game plan and then going for the Skipper, maybe not immediately after, but when he can also fit in a Battle Rage, perhaps.
Yeah, the Wrangler thing's very, very tempting. It's only the Crystal Power and the fact your opponent's kept a card they haven't played that would sort of deter me from it. But he went with this on turn 2 with this in mind. I like how he takes his time to consider every time something big changes, because this risky Skipper double Wrangler later on, like you said, just use it as a closer. He doesn't care about the armor at all. You can forget armor gain. If Mount Seller comes down, you can have as much health as you want. You won't win.
I'd argue the armor is the bad for Warma here, because he wants to get damage to his face and try to get an extra Battle Rage target.
So the bad news there is his attack has stalled. The good news there is that his opponent is going to struggle to get a Mount Seller with anything useful going on anytime soon.
Right. There's a handful of removal for Stone there, but he hasn't hit any ramp or any card draw, and so it's going to be pretty far off before he can get even the overflow down, let alone a Mount Seller with cheap spells, which he already expended a Bog Beam and Crystal Power Moonfire, which you want for the Mount Seller turn later on, ideally. But we saw him heavily respecting Rampage.
Yeah, and you have to, I think, otherwise you just lose the game. And
not just Rampage, Battle Rage, just trying to stave off that early pressure. Oh, that's a big draw. With the double Wild Growth in the deck, that's 2 potential shots at smoothing out this curve. Oh no, Mount Seller.
Fortunate mushrooms. Actually, losing that Mount Seller is a big deal. We have seen that the first Mount Seller, it always wrecks the opposition, but sometimes you need the second one to finish them off. But you normally get the second one because they're so busy messing around dealing with the first one that you've just drawn half your deck by then.
Slight hesitation there from Stone to whether he wanted to go for the second Fungal Fortunes, because I think he was eyeing potentially setting up for an overflow, but he knows that since he didn't hit ramp, the 6 mana turn would still be kind of dead, so we still see him cycling there, and we could just see him go for Overgrowth leading into a Mount Seller turn.
And this has made this turn incredibly interesting. It was going to be Skipper, Wrangler, Coin, Battle Rage, I'm pretty sure of it. But picking up the Rampage does change the clock quite significantly if he wants to go Skipper, Wrangler, and just Rampage up and not take the Battle Rage and just go with what he's got.
Oh, that is a very interesting proposition. Pretty greedy, but the fact that we've seen Stone expend a lot of removal makes it maybe slightly more tempting for Warma. I think I would take the guaranteed Battle Rage for 4 draws while it's available. But there's also a different line, perhaps, of just holding on altogether.
So neither of you were saying I was greedy, but neither of us are greedy enough. He's being mega greedy. Next turn is going to just go nutty.
Yeah. The 110 can very reliably stick for another turn. So what he's saying is that he doesn't think that Stone can clear both the 2-2 and the 2-3, which means he still ends up with, at the very least, the same amount of draws on the follow-up.
Yep.
And saves the coin in the process.
And should get 2 bombs to face. Because he knows that nothing is going to be played on turn 6 of anything that he cares about. Keeping back the Skipper as well, so that means any stray glowfly swarms that get played will be dealt with very swiftly.
From Stone, he has drawn into Rising Winds. Probably not all that impactful here. Question is whether he smells a Battle Rage on the horizon, wants to use this crystal power to get rid of the Bloodsworn. However, it seems pretty inconvenient to do so when he really wants to follow up with a Mount Seller turn.
Yeah, and does he want to play a minion here? Is another question. Just put a 3-2 on the board with one of the 2-2 drops.
Sure.
Just to have a minion on the board, why wouldn't you? But he could also just cycle through to get cheaper things for the Mount Seller.
He would have overdrawn in that case, so I definitely like the minion. Oh, Blood Boil makes this turn very juicy.
It also makes making the minion a little bit less good than it first appeared.
So he will have to trade off the Mercenary for... it doesn't all fit, right? Because of board space and mana. You either go Blood Boil or Battle Rage there, and I think you definitely take the Battle Rage while it is guaranteed.
I find these turns very amusing indeed. There's just so much ridiculous stuff happening. But it doesn't necessarily guarantee victory, weirdly enough. When there's Mount Seller and a Prayer, you can still lose these games.
However, Stone's hand is not really working out for a huge Mount Seller turn. As it stands, only 1 spell playable alongside it because he had to use Bog Beam already. That's an Iron Bark off the top.
Oh, that's where it begins.
Yep. No other alternative, even though it's a lackluster Mount Seller, and it hurts to use it because it's the only one left. He doesn't have the time to go Overflow. He can't cycle with the Wrath because he's only at 9 natural mana.
Yeah, that's right, and that is a big problem. Of course, he's worried about that one execute. That's why this hasn't been an auto-play here. If this is against the Ladder Warrior, you've already got that on the board, because you're not expecting execute, but he knows there's one in there. And he would just lose if he gets executed.
It's true. There's also the possibility of digging for Glowfly Swarm with that remaining Rising Wind. If he hits it, I think that gives him a better board state than the Mount Seller. Then he would still have the mana to go for Crystal Power to remove the Skipper. But it is just 1 in 6 to rip it off the top if he goes for the Rising. So I think you have to bite the bullet and go Mount Seller here.
Yeah, it's 50-50 they haven't got the execute as opposed to the 1 in 6. So I guess you go for it. But he's already burned a Mount Seller, so he knows if execute's there, he loses the game here. But it's not there.
Ooh.
Oh, do you look for the execute now? Even if you burn cards, do you care? Just dump what you can.
No, I think he frees up board space for this Blood Boil Brood, and he can just power through the Mount Seller normally. especially with the Rampage in hand.
Okay, yeah, that's helped a lot. Bomb going for phase 4 might help actually just end the game too.
Yeah, I think he can fit everything he needs to in, especially given that with 2 procs of the Skipper, he also conveniently clears up the two health beasts. The other minion would probably have to come from a Livewire Lance hit, though. The Lackey, I mean.
Yeah. He would like, I think, in an ideal world, to just be able to play the Battle Rage so that he can Grom for 12 next turn. Although, there's not going to be much of a next turn to worry about looking at this.
This was a very tricky turn with the board space. Looks like he is still just going to fit in the Battle Rage. Why not? Also, no immediate pressure to get rid of the smaller minions from Warma.
Just counting, this might actually be lethal. It's a lot.
With the Inner Rage?
Yeah.
It was 1 off.
Okay, good.
There might have been a way to get lethal with, say, Livewire Lance, but I don't think he knew about the lethal possibility until he ripped the Inner Rage from the Battle Rage.
Yeah, and also something bomb was probably a way of going for a good lethal as well. I think he's quite happy with how it ended up though.
Oh sure, for sure there. I mean, as Warrior in this spot, good enough 100% wins you the game. I don't think you should get very tripped up in trying to optimize and look for a lethal in the immediate because you are not an actual robot that can do that.
Well, you should be. You're from France. Every other French player is a robot. Why isn't Warma? But yeah, absolutely true. There's no way you could do that in time. Not when you're looking. You're being distracted by the board space and the mounts. So it's not like you're looking for specifically a lethal to save the game, or you would have more chance of finding it then, of course.
I can see.
Warma finally gets a win there after Stone finally draws that Glowfly, which eluded him for so long at the start of the game. But I really liked Warma's line there right from the get-go of copying the Armor Smith as opposed to trying to get greedy with his Bomb Wranglers.
Yeah, the whole game was very tidily played. He had to change his mind several times during the course of it because he went for the Battle Rage, which he kept, which probably won him the game. Let's not hide the fact I said I didn't like it. But he kept having to mess with those Bomb Wranglers through the game. He kept the Skipper back for multiple reasons, not just the Battle Rage, but also potential Glowfly clear. Right. And he ended up getting 1 million cards from it, which won him the game. Superb.
I think between these 2 games we've seen from Warma on the Warrior, we can glean a lot of information how he values the card Battle Rage. In the Priest game, I was thinking he had a lot of earlier opportunities to rip it, get the cycle going. And personally, I feel that's quite important against Priest to put together the combo before Priest can have all the time to put down their taunts and get the apotheosis. Didn't quite work out for Warma there, but keeping it in Druid is also not something that I would snap do. But for Warma, it seemed very second nature. I think that he's a player who really tries to get the max value out of those Battle Rages, and in this case it worked out really great for him.
Yeah, but all it does is gets your Warrior the win that it's meant to get. And the real crux of the game is coming up now, both players with the Druid, and then Demon Hunter versus Rogue. I don't mean as a head-to-head thing, but I'd rather have a Demon Hunter in my deck than a Rogue if I had a mirror coming up.
Previously, I would tend to agree with you, but the more I see this particular build of Rogue heading into action versus Demon Hunter, the more I'm inclined to think it's around 50-50, just because of the power of Spy Mistress and just how you can preload it as a removal, and then that answers their 1-drop, and then you can naturally put down your own 2-drop, be it an Ambush or a Shadow Jeweler Anar, and then that can get the Rogue ahead of the game.
Yeah, and if they don't take much early damage, then the fact they can't heal doesn't matter. And I'm curious there, shows how little I've played this exact matchup and how much I value different things, because Altruist, thrown away straight away. I know it's not useful early on, but it's such a great card for winning the game that I guess you just trust that you'll draw it in the top half.
Oh man, I don't think I've ever kept Altruist. It is definitely a game-winning card, but I tend to see it as needing very specific pieces to come together. And so if you don't have the maximum amount of mulligan slots in the opener to give you a nice curve leading up to the Altruist, sometimes it gets stuck in an awkward place in the hand where you don't have all of the cheap stuff on the left and the right. It can be stuck between 2 expensive things. It doesn't get too good.
Yeah, and
Warma,
obviously
though.
you can't afford to lose the board, so giving up a whole card in your mulligan just to get the board back that you chose to lose might not work out the best way.
Right. Warma himself kept the ambush, which is a card that I feel is just okay to be kept alongside the backstab. I feel like it was potentially a little bit too defensive, but given that Warma is not on the coin anyway, it just guarantees him something to do with his turn 2.
This is an awkward turn, though.
Yeah.
Because you've got the Hana and the secret, your instinct is to wait. Do you want to praise a 1/1 and then just kill it with your dagger? Is that a thing?
Yes, that is what I am looking at. Yes, you take the 1 extra damage, but that Lackey could potentially make up for the tempo later on. That's a great outcome for Warma. Goblin and Kobold are premium in this matchup.
And actually getting some use out of your dagger that isn't just wasted mana is really nice too.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often with Rogue these days, huh?
It really doesn't. You just spend so much time fiddling around. Of course, the lackeys fill in the gaps in the mana curve so well. You don't have time to dagger, but not wasting time and getting use out of it is nice to see.
Right. And this ambush comes in very clutch for Warma. Stone looking to respect it so as his 4/3 could potentially be safe, but this coin is so costly for Stone. He can't coin out the Glavebound next turn. I wonder if it was worth actually just leaving up the ambush minion there and giving up your 4/3 as a tribute to make sure your Warglaves comes down sooner. Because
Really
I think from
close
Stone,
call, because 4 is a lot.
it's a lot, but I don't know. This still just dies to a Seal Fate, for example. I feel like I'd have preferred to see Stone be more hesitant to use that coin.
I think I agree with you. With the hand he has as well, nothing useful to do next turn, and now his turn 5's just Warglaves, and then turn 6 Adept. That's a long way back from just coining out an Adept and moving all your life.
However, this is the good outcome for Stone, where there's no Seal Fate, there's no removal, and so Warma is just having to throw his Hanar into this.
We could
Explosive
give
looks great,
Stone...
right? Okay, if it were early game, it would be great, but we're now heading into mid-turns versus Demon Hunter, so not an insta-pick, but I still like it.
Yeah, we could give Stone some credit for having the read. There's no Seal Fate there, to be fair, because the 3-mana turn was so clunky from Warma with the Dagger and the Praise Galliquand.
I don't think you could have that read. The board was 2 1/1s, right? I don't think you would want to Seal Fate a 1/1. I would still prefer daggering there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm just trying to sort of get into the mind of the player a little bit why that might be a thing. But yeah, I think you're right. You don't do it. You do it what he did anyway. I do agree.
And now we can see from Warma a potential very strong explosive trap set up. However, there's this one card, Beaming Sidekick, that can make his life very miserable.
Yeah, if you go for the hit you and wait move here, I don't think anything good comes of it because the Demon Hunter just makes more stuff.
He could just rush out his questing to deal with this, and conveniently the questing gets up to 3 health at that point. He can even put it to 4 health with the Praise Galakron, but the 4/2 remains a big problem.
So if you want to set up the explosive, is there a way of doing it where you actually don't just miss your turn? Not really, unless you just throw out the questing, which you really don't want to do.
I think if you're going all in on explosive, you bop the 2/3, praise something, and then play the 2 secrets.
It's going to.
He's telegraphing it, but maybe he had the read on no sidekick. For example, last turn, maybe Stone could have woven that in as opposed to hero power. He's holding on to the praise as well, hedging a little bit, and also just the fact that questing is in hand. I think you'd rather have the 1-cost card to pair with the questing turn. Stone potentially going to be patient here. Yep, I like that.
Yeah, he knows exactly what this is, so he doesn't know.
Well,
I've seen people trick people before, but he basically knows what's going on.
Could have been the greatest bluff in Hearthstone history.
Would have been very nice to see.
Well, we're gonna see Warma now develop his questing. The pickup of a 1-drop is huge because now he can rush out the Pharaoh Cat and potentially have it deal with the Bone Chewer Brawler. It's just unfortunate that Warma doesn't have 1 extra mana to potentially get Kobold Lackey for the full board clear.
Yeah, but this is probably the best he could hope for. The whole weird explosive trap interaction there. It's still there, it still has to be blown up at some point, and that will help him maybe to deal with an Adept. It's the sort of thing that can definitely help, even though at the moment, the way the board stands, you wouldn't imagine it helping.
Well, Stone has not tested for any secret any of the Hunter secrets just yet. So he still has to account for what if it's Snipe, what if it's Pressure Plate, and Snake Trap also is a very big one. And so even the Altruist could be on his mind right now, but I generally think you start the turn by bopping the questing with his Warglaves of Azeroth and then proceed from there.
Yeah, looks like he agrees with you.
Okay, he's gonna start with Twin Slice. Gets the news that the Rogue Secret is of course Dirty Tricks and the Hunter one is not Pressure Plate. Yeah.
And now he's going to... Yeah, this is nice. He's going to do the trade. He's reasonably sure on his read. Well done for going with your read there.
Yes. Right, so you can make the argument that Stone's play is quote-unquote punished a bit by Snake Trap, but he did have a very, very strong read on Explosive due to the setup last turn, so I don't mind this at all.
Yeah, and it's not like a Snake Trap kills him because he has got the Altruist still available to him, although no way of activating it because of the way he used the Twin Slice. Because the second slice is going to move along.
Okay, for Warma, already down to 14. The Seal Fate a little bit short of being able to deal with the Glaive Bound. I don't think he can afford to just Togwaggle go though.
I think you Seal Fate and Evil Miscreant and doesn't just trust to maths.
Right? Gets 3 shots at a good Lackey, good meaning Kobold or Goblin. Or he could Galakron and try to rip Krogs or Flick would be huge here.
Okay, that's what he's going for.
Okay, you'll take a taunt.
Kind of like not as good as it looks from the hand we can see, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it soaks a charge of the Warmal. Doesn't save him any immediate health, but better than nothing, I suppose.
Wow. I think that's one of those plays that's much easier to make from our chair, which is like, oh yeah, just get your 3 lackeys and you'll be all right. Because we're not the ones playing for slotty grandmasters.
Right. Could also just be thinking, get the Galakron active while it's a 7 mana turn on curve, and say if you top deck the Kronks, it just gets better, and you had that slow turn out of the way. But for Stone now, this is insane. Another second slice, Glaive Bound Adept, or Metamorphosis.
Now I am
Not lethal this turn, but it's all but over next turn.
Yeah, it needs very specific combination of weird cards to get out of this one now. The lack of healing in Rogue, the perennial problem for the deck. And unfortunately, overwhelming your opponent with a bunch of nothing right now is just not going to cut it.
Yeah, there's just no way to get healing from this. And he knows the meta hero power is still active, so that is just game.
See, I told you to hit the good lackeys if you just played the Miscreant last turn.
Okay. Wait, I found the out. You evolve into Ancestral Guardian, and then you rush it into the thingy, and then you get 4 HP.
Sure.
I mean, still dead to the Glaive Bound in hand, but he might not know.
And then you Shadow Step it and rush it into something else.
No more minion, but
you'll find a way.
Yeah.
This is the part where you read all of your cards to make sure they don't do something you thought they did.
I think he's actually thought of it, though. We're seeing him play the Candle Taker and evolve that. He's thinking of the out, which, even though it doesn't get there, I commend that. taking your tiny, tiny percent chance to maybe win the game.
Well, he's managed to get a 1-7 taunt on the board and a way to freeze a Demon Hunter. Unfortunately, he has no way to stop the ping to the face.
If you had 27 more health, this would be a great spot, Lorinda.
And the little GG there as well. I think, yeah, exactly. I think that's something the French community have done really well. Not only are they really strong at the game, but they've managed to just get that sense of humour even in the tightest of moments.
Yes, that is very impressive.
Just have a look at this. Yeah. So we have the Spell Druid deck for Stone, sorry about that. And this is the deck that we've been talking about quite a bit because it's the deck with nothing weird going on in it at all. It's just the absolute straightforward normal deck. And that is something actually we've seen work well in this tournament, is the players who have brought the good stuff that they've practiced and they know works are the ones who seem to be the ones sneaking out the extra bits of damage in the meta, the extra percentages they need. Whereas the players who have maybe played a bit more, and I'm looking at a lot of GMs, maybe trying to get a bit tricky, maybe just aren't finding those extra percentages out there. Looking at this Galacron Rogue, this is a relatively new build, the last, I don't know, 10 days or so. Questing Adventurer build. But no bamboozles allowed in that deck, which means your other secrets aren't as good as you would expect.
None can escape my fury.
Definitely agree that the questings help a lot in this matchup. Just trying to get the job done versus the Druid before you even have to worry about the Glowfly, which is a more proactive way of teching as opposed to, say, throwing in your Waste Warden in there. But I have seen that tech work out for certain players already. As for Warma, though, Flick Skyshiv in hand is the most interesting one to me because you could potentially hold on to this for that particular Glowfly board.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is far more interesting than do you keep an Altruist, because that's actually something that makes sense, and they don't kill you quickly enough for you to have to worry about having to do other things. You'd like to do other things, but yeah, keeping that Flick. Warma agrees with you, and also agrees just ripping out the Sky Mistress to get everything going as well. The Spy Mistress, in fact.
Spy Mistress is just such a good card. Against aggro, it allows you to trade up into one of their early minions against control decks. It, at the very least, is a guaranteed 3 damage. And in this case, he could have attacked to quote-unquote force the Druid to hero power on an awkward turn. But of course, this particular list from Warma, I think he could still find potential ways to pay off from the Spy Mistress on board, aside from the damage it gets. Say, if he gets Edwin off the top, he would much rather have that 1-drop as a Shadow Step target, or questing, same deal.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing on the other side the problem of putting 2 Wild Growths in your deck. We talked about the plus sides. The downside is sometimes you just draw a whole hand of ramp and nothing to do with it. And they end up getting wasted and cycled later for trying to get a different card. Definitely one of the problems. It's why a lot of people don't, of course, play Wild Growth in Druid. Okay, Warma has the opportunity here to just go Questing Adventurer crazy. Would like to keep his coin because wants to get that Flick down as quickly as possible, potentially.
Yeah, it is really huge that he drew that and held on to the Spy Mistress, getting that payoff that we were talking about just a while ago. And now, WEStone has that ramp that you were saying, but not very much to do with it. Not even a removal of what could soon be his demise in this adventurer.
Oh, and that's why some people don't play 2 Soul of the Forest as well. Like, all of the cards that some people don't play, and I don't even necessarily agree you shouldn't or should play these. It's very much personal taste. But all of the cards that get scorned upon have been drawn, and you're seeing why the scorn is a thing.
It's such a rough spot for Stone. We could see him cycle with the Rising Winds, but the problem is, after having spent that much mana, I don't think he even has a way to deal with the questing left with 4 mana. Even if he draws Bog Beam here, he can only deal the 5 maximum. If he had a Moonfire, would have been okay. But because you're not dealing with the questing this turn, guaranteed, I wonder if it's just a double Wild Growth turn and unlock the most options for the follow-up, and looks like that's his conclusion.
Yep, draw your Mount Seller, give yourself some outs, and at least be able to play Hearthstone, because you're going to die in 2 turns from this point onwards most of the time. And now it's decision time for Warma. He knows there's nothing there. Do you just want to coin out the Shield of Galakon to add stuff to the board? No, you want to Seal Fate your own face, of course you do.
Wow, that's shocking to me. Coin Shield gets the same amount of cards played as the Seal Fate Titanic Lackey, but I guess I'm seeing that the reasoning for holding onto the coin is that it makes Warma's next turn potentially very powerful, be it if the Lackey sticks, he can coin Togwaggle, or if he sees a Glowfly board, he can coin the Flick. It doesn't look like he has guaranteed lethal for the follow-up, though, and that's why we're seeing him maybe hold back a bit more.
Yeah, from where we're sat, it seems shocking because we know it's not there, but there's a good chance of it being top-decked, etc. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen the Shield be played and use your Flick in 2 turns' time. You're not going to die in the meantime with this board, because the absolute worst is they're trading into all your massive health minions.
My gosh.
I guess the problem is you're scared of all of the buff spells being in hand. You know that Stone's whiffed, so you're scared that if there is a Glowfly Swarm, they go out of range, right? They all just get buffed out of sight immediately.
The Flick removes them anyway if it's Glowfly.
That's
Unless you mean
that's
Soul
what
of
I'm
the
saying.
Forest,
That's
right?
why you've got to keep your Flick.
Right,
so that
right,
if
okay.
Double Power the Wild and Savage Roar is a thing, you can't just leave them up for 1 turn like maybe you normally would.
Sure.
Because you know his hand is full of the garbage cards.
But that is just Warma trying to optimize the very, very few ways where he loses the game, and now Stone has drawn nothing but air. That is just such a miserable Druid draw. He spent so many turns cycling, and yet has still just hit nothing proactive.
Yeah, and this should happen to Druids a lot more. That's my assessment of Druid.
I disagree. They have enough card draw that this shouldn't happen very often.
No, realistically, you're absolutely right. The way that Druid is currently built, it is designed to absolutely not do that. But given that it hasn't changed the match outcome yet necessarily, and we don't know who's going to win the match, and it's going to be a 50-50, I'm absolutely fine in saying I like it when Druids have that draw.
Well, okay, Lorinda. You can have that. I mean, I have to say, maybe I'm a bit biased for Druid because I've just been casting so much of it. And APAC, it seems to be the signature deck for some of our Japanese players, and they've just been on a stomp with it. But it seems like the power does not extend to other regions necessarily. However, we will see Warma now have a chance on that very same class at the very least. But the archetype is slightly different because he has those Emerald Explorers.
Yeah, that was weird how the Japanese players managed to get such a good spot out of that Druid. But we are just going to keep you in suspense for a moment. It's 2 apiece here, and we're back in just a minute when we get Game 5 set up. Sorry about that, but thank you for hanging around. We are back with the Master Store here at Jönköping. It's 2 apiece between Warma and Stone, and looking for a spot in that coveted semi-finals. Obviously a massive deal for both of them, but an even bigger deal for Warma than Stone, as he is looking to make a push to get yet another French player in Grandmasters.
That's right. For anybody who's just tuning in now, the prize pool has been set for the regions of Americas and Asia Pacific, but in Europe, things could still shift about, and the other character who's not on the stream but is very much largely part of the story is IROC, who prior to Jönköping had the second highest prize amount earnings in Europe, second only to Blaze, and now he's wondering if somebody, and hoping, I guess, that nobody can overtake his slot. And what do you know? It's French players up again.
Do I even need to speak for like the next 4 or 5 minutes, Gia? I think you know this like the back of your hand, this precise matchup.
Oh yes, the Druid Mirror. I do know it like the back of my hand, but you know what, Lorinda? It takes all of 2 minutes to learn how this matchup goes, I would say. So you can catch on very quickly.
Make the thing first, right? That's where I want to be.
Yes, the thing being the Glowfly, but the things that help you get to the things are the card draw and the ramp, which Stone has hit, and the double wild growths very consistently helps him into that Glowfly turboed out.
Yeah, so in the last 2 games, you've seen the plus and the minus of playing wild growth in this deck. Last game, it just added to clutter that he didn't need in his hand. This game, there's a really strong chance, unless Warma's hand changes, that this will get Stone into the semi-finals of a Master Store event.
Yep. I think I heard it from PNC, where his run actually ended on a Druid Mirror as well. I would say probably one of the worst matchups to have to end the note on, but that is the nature of the meta we are in sometimes. I will say, though, that Warma can remove a couple of these. Up to 3 if he likes, and then he wouldn't immediately be dead to the Savage Roar, and he has the overflow for follow-up.
Yeah.
What to do?
But
It's also a pretty big deal that Stone drew a minion there and didn't get the max 7 Glowflies. I think that Warma, it's expensive to get rid of all of these removal spells, but he wants to overflow anyway. I think he should just remove the 3 of them.
I think so too. I can see why he's spending so long though, because if your next card's a Mount Seller, you regret it instantly, but
Correct.
if you're dead, you regret it more, right?
Correct.
So, and you're dead more often than you draw Mount Seller. So I think maybe he just was playing due care and attention to the fact that, look, can I still win the game if I do this?
I think he very much because of those overflows, right?
It's easy to say where we're sat though, but why not spend a minute thinking to make sure?
Yeah.
Just going through all of the possible scenarios. Something that I always advocate. I know most people hate it when I say this because they like fast games, but I do think that players should just use their time better.
Oh my goodness. With that draw, Stone can go up to 10 mana next turn if he likes, but I much prefer just going up to 9 and then going Ysera on the follow-up, and then saving the wild growth for card draw later on. Help him cycle towards the dragons. This didn't look too bad for Warma, honestly, because Stone didn't have insta refill, but now that he has the ability to Ysera first and then keep cycling, it's gonna have to be a miracle overflow for him.
But drawing a lot of cards can lead to miracles.
Yes, indeed.
He's not
Mount
dead
Seller.
next turn.
Okay, that is huge. This is a hand that
It's
fights back,
everything.
Lorinda.
That is everything in the deck. Actually, to the point where he didn't get quite enough. I was thinking maybe even could consider bog beaming there because you still make 4 beasts with the Mount Seller next turn without it.
Yeah. I mean, you can make even more, right? Because you
Yeah.
can go Mount Seller, innervate Fungal Fortunes, and
Yeah.
keep the train going.
Dream is your nightmare.
So Stone is the first to land the Ysera, but Ysera has her whimsy. Sometimes the dragons are all at the bottom, and Warma has the opportunity to take back the board right now.
And Stone doesn't really have an obvious way to rifle through his deck either. He can't just overflow into a load of dragons at the moment.
Oh, this is huge now. I think with the pickup of another claw, you might forego the fungal fortunes in favor of just guaranteed remove 2 more glowflies. Sorry, 1 more. You can only attack once. So in that case, it is just the fungal fortunes, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this for a roll as well. I mean, obviously it's going to happen. There's only 15 beasts, and there's sort of they come in pairs. There's like 2 of everything: 2 rush minions, 2 taunt minions, etc. And 1
My brain
Mookla.
just treats these claws as crystal powers, but they obviously aren't, and that is no sweat off Warma's back. He can even drop this Iron Bark. I love it. Taunt anything but the Mount Seller. If the Mount Seller lives, he is in an extremely good spot. And Stone needs a miracle of his own. A Mount Seller would also be huge. Nothing's there, so he has to cycle with this Wild Growth. Only 1 draw. What's gonna be?
It needs to be good. That's
Okay.
good.
Into another draw.
That's good.
Okay.
That's
Oh
good.
my goodness. 3 in a row? Hello?
All things are possible.
That'll
Okay,
do as
so
well.
that's just a very threatening board in its own right. And
Oh my.
5, 6, 7. He's like 1 damage short of being able to remove the Mount Seller, right? Bog Beam, Moonfire,
Yeah.
Crystal Power. Yeah.
Yeah, because he can't get to it because there's 4 taunt minions in the way.
But he could just remove some of the taunts instead, consolidate his board with this Power of the Wild, and hope for a counter lethal despite the Mount Seller sticking another turn.
Yeah, I mean,
This is
next turn
right
he
down to the
just
wire.
wins the game if he removes a lot of this stuff. He doesn't because Mount Seller will make more taunts and more nonsense will happen, but just got to rely on this giant army of dragons getting through. With Savage Roar, that's not at all unexpected.
Completely agree. Warma has used a lot of his cheap spells now, but he has Fungal Fortunes to potentially give him more, or even Overflow. At this point, you'd never have time to go for the Ysera. I think it's supposed to start with Overflow.
Probably.
This is much easier if you have Deck Tracker, because if there's a bunch of Iron Bark Bog Beam left, then Overflow is fine. But if you're planning to use spells that cost mana, like the Crystal Power, then maybe starting with Fungal is better.
You can even start with Moonfire because it's not doing much on this board and just see what it does and where you're standing as well.
Yeah. But if he's taking this value trade, it does look to be an Overflow
Yep.
turn.
Oh, he's so dead though.
What to do?
I mean, we've not seen the Mount Seller go through yet, and I mean, put more minions on the board. We've not seen Iron Bark, the second one.
Yeah, he's actually just delaying it, but he's got to go quickly because there's a lot of decisions he was making there, and the rope is going.
Oh, 2!
And all of these things
minions!
should have been done 30 seconds ago, Gia. I think
Yep.
he's going to get there, but will he get chance to see what he gets from the overflow? This animation isn't the quickest.
I don't... Okay, he can rip the Iron Bark. But there is no more board space to get anything else done. He has built up the best wall of taunts he possibly could, and there's 3 of them. Double Savage, I don't think it gets there because it's 3
That
taunts,
doesn't
not
help.
2. Yeah. Oh my gosh! And no farm of card draw.
But he can take out a lot of this stuff.
Right. He can take down the Mount Seller. That's the big one.
He needs to have everything he can. He needs to remove the maximum number of minions
Right, because
he
there's
possibly can.
double roar on the backswing. And so, this Moonfire will be going into the 2-1, I fully expect. And,
Oh no, because he wants to use his
sure.
face to take down. Yeah, this makes sense.
sorry, the other Moonfire then.
Yeah.
To the 2-1. And then I think he also wants to save as much health across these minions evenly as possible. So I'd like 11-9 into 1-4 and then 7-13 into 5-7, as opposed to one of the 11 attack minions into the Mount Seller. Yes, very clean from Stone.
Yeah, there was a world where he could have used a Savage Roar to boost up the hero to save him in fire for something else.
Okay, I guess that gasp from me was a little overdramatic because he only has 1 spell he can pair with a Mount Seller this
Okay.
turn. More likely, I'm looking at Savage Roar cleanup into Glowfly board. That looks like checkmate to me. However, he can only clean up 2 of the minions. It's probably enough though, right?
I'm not going with anything being certain because
Yeah.
with 12 mana available next turn, any draw card for Stone can just
Sure.
have a crazy consequences. But yes, it does look to me like Warma has reversed not being the first one down and is in a fantastic
gosh.
spot.
Sorry, I miscounted. He could only have dealt with one of them if he also wanted to fit in the Glowfly board because he needed to double roar. And so he prioritized getting down the Glowfly, leaves up 1 dragon, and hopes that he is not dead on the backswing. Stone searching for some rushes, some taunts, gets some terrible beasts.
No way of even...
Oh my gosh.
Ugh.
Stone is dead, right?
I haven't mathed it, but he looks really dead to me from where I'm sat without actually adding it up.
He can only remove 2 slots on the board. He can get rid of a layer, but it still leaves the same amount of attack on board. So that is just going to be 6 damage on 5 minions. GG. Oh, that's way more back and forth than I'm used to seeing from a Druid Mirror.
Yeah, they can be exciting occasionally, but this goes back to where Warma chose on turn 6, I think it was, might have been 5, to just remove as many glowflies as possible.
Right.
He ruined his hand. He relied on the overflow, restoring the game. He just destroyed his hand. He said, okay, I don't want to die to whatever nonsense you've got going on. I'm going to give you 3 glowflies. I'm not scared of 3 glowflies. I can take that. Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
Then he had another turn for the overflow, took another 6 damage, and then just went wild with the Mount Seller, which he was allowed to get because he's just drawn 5 cards.
I would argue that turn 6 actually made his hand better for overflow because it dumped enough space for him to get to the Mount Seller. It would have been a very difficult decision had he had Mount Seller in hand already at the time, but still it wasn't completely comfortable to do because it was essentially handing the initiative back to Stone. It just turned out for Warma that Stone didn't have a follow-up, and the dragons, although they came in pretty clutch for Stone, I think that play towards the end of the Glowfly Soul of the Forest instead of overreacting to the dragons was really what sealed the game in Warma's favor. And now he is straight through to semifinals.
Yep, another French possibility here at a Masters Tour. Who would have thought? But that's just one of our quarterfinals down, so we're going to get on with another one in just a moment. And we're going to see Habu Gabu, who no one really seemed to know who he was on Twitter, but I'm telling you, if you check his results out, he has got a lot of form in Masters Tours. So let's take a quick break, let's get him set up and see what he's got to offer.